Welcome and hello to a new episode of Short Comic Introduction and also the beginning of our journey through all the comics and stories of Tiffany Ross. Today I want to talk a little bit about Alien Dice, the first comic that I started reading from her, and I know what I said in the first part that I wanted to start with the Cyantian Chronicles. But something came up and I had to change the schedule a little bit, and to be honest, I think it's a little bit better to start with Alien Dice because, let's face it, this was the first comic I have read from her, or I started reading from her, so yeah, let's start with this one. Like I said in the first part, my first time I was introduced to her, or how I found out about her, was the Kickstarter she did, or she tried to do, for the Swiftpaw plush. And like I said, I really loved the design. And when I start liking a character or a design, I try to find out a little bit more about them. And this is when like I said, I checked out and searched and came to the comic Alien Dice. And I started reading it, and I immediately, I really, really loved it, because there were so many different things. But let's start from the beginning. The comic is again one of the very long-running ones. This started in March 2001, so we are nearly 16 years now that this comic is going on, and what's about is something, I have to say, very interesting. The comic is about the life or how the life of Chelsea Reed takes a very different turn after Lex, a blue-skinned alien, breaks into her house and tries to get her cat. And I know how this sounds. It sounds very, very, very strange, but believe me, this is just the opening of a very interesting sci-fi comic, which I don't know how to put it. Many people say when I try to explain the main plot of this comic, they think this is something like all these, or it's many think at first at Pokemon, because the main focus on it, or at least when it started, is on a game called Alien Dice, and the gist of it is the participants, they fight with creatures that come that are literally dice. Yeah, I know how this sounds, but yeah, these dice, they bond with living beings and create some kind of yeah, some say monsters, some say other creatures, but this is the whole gist of it. And yeah, when you start talking about or telling someone about the story, they immediately think at Pokemon and so on. And I think this wouldn't be fair, because yeah, at first glance it might be the same, I want to say genre, but or theme, but no, it's not. The whole, because the whole gist, I know the whole gist about Pokemon is they collect the monsters, they let them fight, and so on, and try to get better experience. But no, not Alien Dice. Alien Dice, there is a much darker story behind it, and why this game exists. Because this game exists, it's not just a fun game. It's more like, how to put it, a gladiator fight. For rich people, they try to get their kick out of this one, but I think this is a very, very ingenious way to tell this kind of story. And also the creatures themselves, they're not just some dumb creatures. I don't want to how to put it, to speak bad about the other parts, but all the creatures in Alien Dice, they have their own personality. They interact with each other, so they're never really on the side and only there for comedic purposes and so on. They are part of the story, and this is what I really, really enjoy about this. And yeah, it's like I said, it's a science fiction story, and we are not only on one place or one planet. I love that this one jumps between many different directions and places, and it never feels stale or too much. It's really, if you put it down, if you boil it down, it's a very interesting kind of adventure with a very dark undertone, and it works in many ways. Now, I talked about now, well, mostly about the gist, what's the story about, but I think not only the story is really great written and interestingly written, so that every time you want to know how it's going on, every time a new character appears, and there are a lot of characters, and again, every character has its really own personality. I never again it's a comic that you don't see many repeats in the characterizations and so on, and it's a lot of fun seeing how all these characters interact. And yeah, this brings us to our main focus, or our main characters, Lex and Shell, and they are, I will say it, I really love them. They are fantastic. At first, or at the beginning, sometimes I had the feeling it's a little bit rocky at one or two points, but it never felt like it's distracting how these two interact. The first thing I really love is Chelsea takes this whole thing that there is an alien trying to steal her cat that somehow turned in this in one of these creatures. She takes this like how to put it, like it's an everyday it's an everyday situation. And normally when writers go on and say there's now something very different in your life, that sometimes the characters become very stupid, meaning they start acting like, oh, how extreme everything is. And I love that she's just, yeah, there are these strange things there, and she for her it's not that extreme in the start, and it's maybe something. She acknowledged that it's strange, but she's not going all out in this case. And this is the way I like that these two characters, how these two characters interact the longer the story goes. Let's face it, it is a kind of romance story in there, but it works. It's not forced in so many ways, and I think it's also a great thing that the way that the backstory of Lex is very early on, that we are told about him and what's going on in his life and why he is in this situation, why he is playing this game, or why he has to play this game. So yeah, it's I really enjoy this that we get the main focus points very early on out of the way, and so we can focus on everything else that's happening, and how the game is progressing, how all these characters interact, what's the big story behind all of this. And again, it's a very neat, it's really fantastically written. The only thing I have to say I don't like, this sounds a little bit strange, but this is a personal thing. This has nothing to do with the comic. It's just my personal opinion, and this is that I'm not that big a fan of these daily stripe like comics, and yeah, this one is in this style, but the comic itself is out of the question. It's a very interesting comic that I think very many people will enjoy. If you're a fan of science fiction, if you're a fan of these kind of, or let's say a little bit darker science fiction, if you're a fan of really good timed humor, if you're a fan of good interaction between characters, if you're a fan of even side characters that that aren't just there to be comedic sidekicks or something like that. If you're a fan of a little bit different kind of romance stories, then definitely check it out. If you're and also if you're interested in design choices and character designs, take a look. I highly recommend, because the different I have to say, the different dye, they look amazing. I really love the design choices she did, even from the beginning. The idea is that they gain experience, they can level up and so on, and the way they level up, they change form and everything. And I think they did really great job with all these, or she did a really great job with all these different design choices, and they all look amazing. Personally, I still think that I personally really like Stealth and Swiftpaw, but all the others are, again, they are really great. Yeah, it's really a fantastic, or let's say a very different story, and I'm really glad I found it, because it's one of these stories that you at first, when you hear it, that you think it won't work in so many ways, but yes, believe me when I say this one works in all of the ways. Like I said, it might put the one or other reader at first off a little bit from the beginning, but believe me, it's really one of these comics I really highly recommend checking out in so many ways. It's one that really, I don't think that there are many people who will dislike the story, but yeah, definitely take a look. Alien Dice is definitely is one of these. Like I said, is one of my personal recommendations to check out. So yeah, thanks for listening to this. The links to everything, like always, can be found under the video. And yeah, I really hope next month I will start with the Cyantian Chronicles, and that there won't be something between. But let's see what happens. But yeah, I really want to start that one, because that's the one I really enjoy the most of her stories, for different reasons. But we will talk about that when we come to it. So thanks for watching, and as always, if you like the comics, if you like the stories, then support the artist in any way, Patreon, comments, or just voting for them. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you soon. Bye.